Welcome to Can You Dig It? I'm the Beatlemeister, master of the Beatleverse. In this episode, we are creating a tier list of Beatles albums, openers, and closers. The Beatles were, for the most part, excellent at choosing openers and closers. Everyone knows that the first and last songs on an album are two of the most important songs. For the Beatles, the opener sets the tone for the album, usually a rocker. And the closer tends to be either something epic, a masterpiece, or a song that points towards the future, sometimes all of the above, and sometimes none of the above, as we shall see. In this episode, I'll be judging each album by ranking each song separately, giving the songs a score out of 5 Mop Tops on the Beatlemeter, and then adding the two scores together. A perfect score is 10 out of 10 Mop Tops. Now, obviously, there are 4 Beatles consisting of 4 Mop Tops, but I'm using a 5 Mop Top Beatlemeter, because 5 is metric and 4 is Fahrenheit. And Fahrenheit is stupid. Of course, we have John, Paul, George, and Ringo as the 4 Mop Tops. So who is the 5th Mop Top? Well, the 5th Mop Top is actually the first Mop Top, and that Mop Top belongs to Stuart Sutcliffe. We're going to give mostly forgotten Beatles stew some love in this episode, and so, if a song scores a perfect 5 Mop Tops, I'm calling that a stew. If an album scores a perfect 10, then that's a perfect stew. Each song will be judged on how good the song is it a good opener or closer, is it the best track for that position, etc. I shall be ranking in order of appearance, because chronological is Beatlelogical. Right, that's enough intro, let's meet our contestants, 2 songs per album. And our first opener and closer tag team is, from the album Please Please Me, we have I Saw Her Standing There as the opener, and Twist and Shout as the closer. As you can see, Please Please Me comes out swinging with some heavy hitters. Next, we have With the Beatles, represented by It Won't Be Long and Money, That's What I Want. The album, A Hard Day's Night, opens with the title track, A Hard Day's Night, and closes with something a bit different, the folky I'll Be Back. Beatles For Sale mixes things up a bit more, with No Reply and Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby, the first time George closes an album. Next up, Help, with the title track Help as the opener, and Dizzy Miss Lizzy, another John screamer, as the closer. Rubber Soul. We have the funky and cheeky Drive My Car, accompanied by the controversial Run for Your Life. Revolver takes everything to a whole new level, with George's Taxman as the opener and Tomorrow Never Knows as the trippy closer. Sgt. Pepper's. Now we're getting into psychedelic show tunes, with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band as the opener, and arguably the greatest Beatles song ever recorded, A Day in the Life, as the epic closer. Magical Mystery Tour. Another psychedelic show opener titled track, Magical Mystery Tour, and All You Need Is Love, the anthem for the Summer of Love, as the closer. The White Album. This is a double album, so I'm treating it as 2 albums. Disc 1 opens with the rocker Back in the USSR and closes with the beautiful and delicate Julia. Disc 2 kind of mirrors Disc 1, with Birthday as the rocking opener and Good Night as a very unique closer. Yellow Submarine isn't a real Beatles album, so we're not going to bother with it on this tier list. Next, we have Let It Be. 2 of Us is the opening track, with Paul and John showing off their Everly Brothers chops. And the album closes with the classic Get Back, live rooftop performance. And lastly, we have Abbey Road, with Come Together as the iconic opener, and the medley trio of Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, and The End as the closer. Now that we've met our contenders, let's get to ranking.
1, 2, 3, 4!
First up, Please Please Me. The opener, I Saw Her Standing There, with its iconic count-in, rocking Paul vocal and thumping bass line, is one of the all-time great album openers, as well as one of the very best openers on a debut album. This song is timeless. It sounds like it could have come from the 70s, 80s, 90s, or even today. No doubt about it, we have our first stew. 5 out of 5 Mop Tops for I Saw Her Standing There. Our closer is Twist and Shout.
Well, shake it up, baby, now. Shake it up, baby. Twist and shout. Twist and shout.
Twist and Shout is the most famous cover song in rock history. Twist and Shout has one of the all-time great screaming rock and roll performances from John Lennon. The song wasn't written by the Beatles, but it might as well have been written for the Beatles, because Twist and Shout is synonymous with rock and roll and early Beatlemania. Twist and Shout is clearly a 5 out of 5 Mop Tops. If my math is correct, then 5 plus 5 equals 10, which means Please Please Me scores a perfect Stew. And that means Please Please Me gets placed right up here in the S tier. S, of course, is for stew.
It won't be long, yeah, yeah, yeah. It won't be long, yeah, yeah.
Next up, we have With the Beatles, represented by It Won't Be Long and Money, That's What I Want. The opener, It Won't Be Long, is one of the Beatles' trademark Yeah 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 songs. It's full of Beatlemania energy and looks like the best choice for an opener on the album, but it's not a stew. I think this song scores a 4 at most. The closer is Money, That's What I Want. Like Twist and Shout on the last album, Money is a cover, a rocker, and a John Screamer. It's a good cover, but is it the best song for the closer? Looking at the track list, I think George's Don't Bother Me would have made for a more interesting closer, although it works very well at the top of the album. Turns out that Money probably is the best closer. However, it is unfortunate that Money isn't an original, and also, it's not one of their best covers. Money, That's What I Want scores 2 out of 5 Mop Tops. That gives With the Beatles a combined score of 6 out of 10 Mop Tops, and that puts With the Beatles in the D tier. Next, we have the album A Hard Day's Night.
It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog.
The opener, A Hard Day's Night, is the title track for the album and the film. The song explodes off the album. It's one of the Beatles' defining tracks. It has the most talked about and studied single chord in rock history. The guitar solo is one of George's best. It's the only possible opener for this album. A Hard Day's Night scores 5 out of 5 Mop Tops. And the closer is I'll Be Back.
You know, if you break my heart, I'll go, but I'll be back again.
This is a groundbreaker because it's the first original to close an album, and it's not a rocker like the other closers. I'll Be Back features acoustic guitars and has a folky feel. Folk rock was all the rage in 1964, and the Beatles were beginning to show off their genre chops. I'm not sure I'll Be Back was the best choice for the closer. However, looking at the track list, I think Things We Said Today is the stronger track and would have made for a better closer. And so I'll Be Back scores 3 out of 5 Mop Tops, giving the album A Hard Day's Night a total score of 8. And that puts A Hard Day's Night solidly in the B tier. Our next contestant is Beatles For Sale.
This happened once before, when I came to your door, no reply. They said it wasn't you, but I saw you peep through your window.
No Reply is the opening track, and like I'll Be Back, No Reply is a groundbreaking opener. No Reply is not a rocker, so it breaks with tradition. And the song opens with a striking John a cappella vocal and more acoustic guitar. The lyrics are about the dark side of love, dealing with obsession and insecurity. As an opener, No Reply stands out as a bold artistic statement, telling us that Beatles For Sale isn't going to be a Beatlemania album. Is this the best choice for an opener? Looking at the track list, I'd say yes. I wouldn't say No Reply is a stew, but it is a solid 4 out of 5 Mop Tops.
No reply.
The closer is the Carl Perkins cover, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby.
Well, they took some honey from a tree, dressed it up and they called it me. Everybody's trying to be my baby. Everybody's trying to be my baby. Everybody's trying to be my baby now.
Sung by George, this is the first time George has closed an album. Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby is a good track, but it's much better live. On this album, the track is too long, repetitive, and slow. And after getting an original closer on the last album, we now expect original closers on every album. Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby scores a 2 out of 5 Mop Tops, which gives Beatles For Sale a total of 6 Mop Tops, placing it in the D tier. Next up,
Help! I need somebody. Help! Not just anybody. Help! You know I need someone. Help!
exactly the same as A Hard Day's Night, the opening track Help explodes off the record and screen. as the title track for both the album and the movie. Help is another instant classic from the Beatles, and another high-energy Beatlemania #1. But once again, the lyrics are darker, more introspective, and in this case, literally a cry for help. There is no other opener for this album, no doubt about it. Help scores a 5 out of 5 Mop Tops.
Won't you please, please help me, help me, help me.
And then we come to the closer, Dizzy Miss Lizzy. Another cover, rocker and John's Screamer. Only this time, it's one of the worst songs the Beatles ever recorded. This song has the most annoying guitar riff in all of rock and roll. Not even John's vocal histrionics can save this rubbish. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a 0, a donut, no Mop Tops for Dizzy Miss Lizzy, which means the album Help scores a measly 5 out of 10 Mop Tops, putting this album in the lowly E tier. Next up, Rubber Soul.
Asked the girl what she wanted to be. She said, baby, can't you see?
Rubber Soul opens with Drive My Car, a fun, funky, and cheeky rocker that doesn't quite set the proper tone for this folk-heavy album. Nevertheless, the song still rocks, and although it's not quite a stew, it definitely scores a rock-solid 4 out of 5 Mop Tops. The closer is the controversial and oh-so-problematic original rocker, Run For Your Life. The song is considered controversial and problematic, basically because the lyrics are considered misogynist by today's hypersocial standards. Once again, John is singing about the dark side of love, this time inspired by the Elvis song, Baby Let's Play House. I have no problem with the lyrics. Jealousy and violence have always been part of toxic relationships, and the lyrics can easily apply to women as well as men. See Nancy Sinatra's version of Run For Your Life. In that version, Nancy admits that she is a wicked chick born with a jealous mind. Lyrics aside, this is a really good rocker, but it does sound a bit more Beatles For Sale than Rubber Soul, and it doesn't really work as a closer. George's If I Needed Someone would have been the perfect closer for this classic album. So I'm giving Run For Your Life 3 out of 5 Mop Tops, giving Rubber Soul a total score of 7 Mop Tops, placing it in the C tier. Moving on, we arrive at Revolver.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Let me tell you how it will be.
And this album changes everything. Revolver is the great leap forward, and the opener is George's brilliant rocker, Taxman. It has the drugged-out Count-In at the top, announcing a new Beatles sound and attitude. It has big, fat, funky bass, crunchy, distorted guitars, and one of the most blistering guitar solos in the history of rock, played, of course, by Paul. There is no better opener on the album. This is a no-brainer. Taxman scores 5 out of 5 Mop Tops. And the closer, possibly the best closer on any Beatles album. Possibly. The greatest acid trip ever put to music, and probably the most important musical and technical innovation by the Beatles. The one and only Tomorrow Never Knows.
Turn off your mind, relax and float downstream.
This song, the first to be recorded for Revolver, reaches so far into the future, it sounds like a song that traveled back in time from the future. Ringo's drumming is so hypnotic and precise, it sounds like a drum loop. John's vocals are recorded through spinning Leslie speakers, giving him that feel of a Tibetan monk shouting from the mountaintop. George adds the drones of a sitar and tambura, and the noises and sound effects heard throughout the song are an early example of sampling. Paul McCartney basically invented hip-hop when he brought his experimental tape loops to the session. Tomorrow Never Knows is another no-brainer. A score of 5 Mop Tops means Revolver is our second perfect stew, and takes its well-deserved place up there in the S tier. Sgt. Pepper, can Sgt. Pepper equal the heights of Revolver? The opening track is also the title track. Now we're getting into the psychedelic show tunes era of the Beatles, and there is no better theatrical show opener than Sgt. Pepper's. This is the only possible album opener, but it's helped a lot by the album's second track, with a little help from my friends. Those two songs together score an easy 5. Although Sgt. Pepper on its own is super famous and the perfect opener for this album, it is not the Beatles' best ever track. And for that reason, I'm giving Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the song, a 4 out of 5 Mop Tops.
With Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, we hope you will enjoy the show.
The closer, A Day in the Life, like the closer on Revolver, is an epic, a masterpiece, and the most obvious 5 out of 5 Mop Tops yet.
I read the news today, oh boy, about a lucky man who made the grade.
A Day in the Life is possibly the Beatles' masterpiece of masterpieces. Many consider this song their creative zenith and their musical apex mountain. And so Sgt. Pepper comes close to S tier, but a combined score of 9 Mop Tops means that the album has to settle for the lowly A tier. Roll up for the Mystery Tour. A Magical Mystery Tour is the title track and the psychedelic show tune opener on this, the Beatles' most psychedelic album and movie. Like the song Sgt. Pepper, Magical Mystery Tour opens the show and sets you up for a magical ride through trippy tunes in an old-school English music hall. Magical Mystery Tour is a feel-good sing-along with a slightly dark and creepy outro. The song is good, but it does sound a little bit like a sequel to Sgt. Pepper, and for that, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5 Mop Tops. The closer is the universal anthem to the summer of love, All You Need Is Love.
All you need is love. All you need is love.
One of the Beatles' most famous songs, written and recorded for the world's first ever global live broadcast called Our World. All You Need Is Love was the obvious showstopper for the show, and for Magical Mystery Tour, the album. All You Need Is Love was a smash #1 single and clearly a 5 out of 5 Mop Tops, giving Magical Mystery Tour, the album, an aggregate score of 8 Mop Tops, placing it right here in the B tier. Right, now we come to the White Album. And because the White Album is a double album, I'm counting each disc separately. And so, disc 1 of the White Album opens with one of the Beatles' best rockers, Back in the USSR. This is one of my 2 favorite tracks on the album. Back in the USSR is an homage to both Chuck Berry and the Beach Boys, taking inspiration from Berry's Back in the USA and the Beach Boys' California Girls. This is one of Paul's best songs, with really clever lyrics telling the story of Soviet spies on their way back home from living undercover in the USA. Ringo was not on the track because he had temporarily left the band, but the Beatles do an amazing job of rocking the house down without him, and they prove that they are better at being the Beach Boys than the Beach Boys. A perfect track to open disc 1 and a clear 5 out of 5 Mop Tops. The beautiful and deeply personal Julia is the album closer.
Julia, Julia, morning moon, touch me.
This is one of John Lennon's Donovan finger-picking songs, and beloved by many Beatles fans. But it's not the best finger-picking song. That title goes to Dear Prudence, my other favorite song on the White Album. Julia is basically a solo effort by John, with no other Beatles playing on it, and it's a rather slow and depressing way to end Disc 1. I like the song, but I don't love it as a closer. George's While My Guitar Gently Weeps would have made for a much better and epic album closer on Disc 1. And so, I'm giving Julia 2 out of 5 Mop Tops. This means that the White Album Disc 1 scores a total of 7 Mop Tops, putting it next to Rubber Soul in the C tier.
So I sing a song of love, Julia.
Next up, the White Album Disc 2. Once again, we open with a rocker, the great and mighty Birthday. Not as lyrically clever as back in the USSR, but this rocks just as hard, and rocks way harder than any birthday song legally should. Lots of Beatle fans dismiss this song, especially for its lack of lyrical creativity, but not me. Not every song has to have lyrics like I Am the Walrus. All a great rock song has to do is rock, and that's exactly what we get with Birthday. This is a proto-punk bomb of pure energy and happiness, and scores 5 out of 5 Mop Tops. The closer is a different story. Ringo Starr's Good Night.
Now it's time to say good night, good night, sleep tight.
Written by John Lennon, with a head-scratching score by George Martin. John wanted an over-the-top, ultra-sweet, Disney-like score for this lullaby at the end of the album, and George Martin delivered. Good Night is a kind of denouement or palate cleanser after the nightmare acid trip of Revolution 9, and I hate it. It's one of the worst Beatles originals. It's the worst song on the White Album, and I'm glad it's last on the album because that means I don't have to bother skipping it. Good Night scores a big fat 0, just like Dizzy Miss Lizzy, which means that the White Album Disc 2, with a total score of 5 Mop Tops, takes its place alongside Help in the E tier.
Good night, sleep tight.
Penultimate album, Let It Be.
Reverse riding nowhere, spending someone's modern day.
Two of Us is a very interesting opener. An acoustic track with a lovely Paul and John harmony throughout, reminiscent of the Everly Brothers. It's a great track, with a great George lead guitar camouflaged as a bass, but the song is a bit of a drag for an album opener. Without a doubt, I've Got a Feeling is the perfect album opener for Let It Be. I've Got a Feeling rocks with a great riff off the top, and it features Billy Preston killing it on electric piano. Two of Us lacks all of those things. I like Two of Us quite a bit, but as the album opener, Two of Us scores 3 out of 5 Mop Tops.
Two of us wearing raincoats, standing so low in the sun.
And the album closes with Get Back, one of the all-time greatest Beatle rockers and a classic of classic rock.
Georgia was a man who thought he was a loner, but he knew he couldn't relax. Georgia left his home in Tucson, Arizona, for some California grass.
This is the last rooftop track and ends with John's iconic
Thanks, Mo.
I'd like to say thank you on behalf of the group and ourselves, and I hope we pass the audition.
Get Back is an obvious stew, 5 out of 5 Mop Tops. And so, with a combined score of 8 Mop Tops, Let It Be, very appropriately, belongs in the B tier.
Get back, Joe. Oh, yeah. Get back.
And finally, we come to Abbey Road.
Here come old flat top, he come grooving up slowly. He got juju eyeball, he won holy roller, he got.
Come Together, John's swampy, moody, mercurial rocker, is kind of the sequel to Get Back, and just as good. The whole band plays muted. The song rocks, but in a very low-key way. Come Together is much more disciplined than previous openers, which sets the tone for Abbey Road, considered by many to be their best produced album. Come Together is another all-time classic and clearly scores 5 Mop Tops on the Beatlemeter. Closing the album is the medley trio of Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, and The End. To keep things from getting too wordy, I'll simply refer to the song as The End. Not only does The End have the perfect title for a closer to a classic album, it's also the most epic and iconic closing track for an entire career. The song starts with Golden Slumbers, a beautiful church-like lullaby. Then into Carry That Weight, an English pub sing-along and football chant sung by all 4 Beatles. And then we get the 4 solos, a drum solo by Ringo, and the epic dueling guitar solos by Paul, George, and John, all recorded in one take. The End is the last song on the last album by the greatest band that ever was, and it ends with some of the most elegant lyrics. An easy 5 Mop Tops for The End, which means, ladies and gentlemen, we have another perfect stew to end this opener and closer tier list. Abbey Road takes its place alongside Please Please Me and Revolver up here in the S tier.
And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make.
So there you have it, folks, the Beatles opener and closer tier list. Recap. Down in the E tier with a score of 5 Mop Tops, we have Help and the White Album, Disc 2. In D tier with 6 Mop Tops, we have With the Beatles and Beatles For Sale. In C tier with 7 Mop Tops, Rubber Soul and White Album, Disc 1. In B tier with 8 Mop Tops, we have the trio of movie albums, A Hard Day's Night, Magical Mystery Tour, and Let It Be. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is all alone in A tier with a score of 9 Mop Tops. And in the tier named S for Stew, representing the early, middle, and late periods, with a perfect stew score of 10 Mop Tops each, Please Please Me, Revolver, and Abbey Road. So how do the openers and closers compare in terms of points scored? Well, let's see. The openers with perfect scores are I Saw Her Standing There, A Hard Day's Night, Help, Taxman, Back in the USSR, Birthday, Come Together. The closers with perfect scores are Twist and Shout, Tomorrow Never Knows, A Day in the Life, All You Need Is Love, Get Back, and Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, The End. With a score of 7 to 6, the advantage goes to the openers. How about total scores? The openers scored a total of 57 Mop Tops out of 65. That's 87%. The closers scored a total of 42 Mop Tops out of 65. 65%. So the openers on Beatles albums are 22% better than the closers. Now, how would I rank the top 3 S-tier albums in terms of openers and closers? Frankly, that's a tough one, so I'm going to leave that to you in the Beatleverse. Please Please Me, Revolver, or Abbey Road? How would you rank these 3 perfect stews? So that's it, folks. The Beatlemeister is ranked and tiered out. This video took a lot longer to make than expected, so I hope you like, and if you like, please like and subscribe, and drop a comment. Did I miss a perfect stew? Let me know. Questo, obrigado. Can you dig it?
Well, I'd rather see you dead, little boy, than to see you with another girl. You better keep your head, little boy, or you won't last in my world. You better run for your life if you can, little boy. Hide your head in the sand, little boy. Catch you with another girl, that's the end, little boy.